Thank you so much for attending this. This information is really important if you're thinking about selling your home, but I'm going to give you some general information also about what's happening in Denver. So, well, Denver metro area. So you said there was a couple of hands, it was Denver City, Denver County. The information I'm going to be giving to you today could be anywhere in the Denver metro area. We go up as far as Longmont, out west as far as Evergreen, out east all the way to I'm thinking Brighton area, and also down south down to Castle Rock. So that's the MLS system that we usually pull all of our data from. So if you look at, I wanted to show you this newsletter that I handed out to you guys. The newsletter is something that we put out so that we can give a little bit more information on what's going on in Denver. And if you open it up into the middle, you'll see this great map. So on the map, you're going to see some different colors. The green is going to be appreciating areas, and the red is going to be depreciating. The yellow and orange are going to be areas that are sort of stabilizing. So you might look at this a little bit thoroughly after you leave here to see if you can find your neighborhood. And there's going to be some little acronyms, and so I'll tell you what they are. DOM stands for Days on Market. So everybody, does that, you know what that means? Does anybody want to raise their hand? Let me know. Days on Market means how long the listing's been on the market until it actually gets sold and closed on. Then we've got MOI. MOI stands for Months of Inventory. And the other acronym is UC for Under Contract and SLD for Sold. So what you'll see when you look at this is we've got a lot of green areas going on in Denver. Last year, it was a lot more reds and yellows and oranges. So we are actually in a market where we are starting to, we've actually stabilized in most of our markets, and we're actually increasing in home sales and prices in probably about 70% of our market. So everybody in that good news, we're finally out of all of that doom and gloom. And you'll still hear stuff on the news. You know, you'll still hear things where there's, you know, a lot of foreclosures coming, a lot of HUD properties coming. HUD are properties that are owned by the government that have foreclosed on an FHA loan. So when you hear things like that, that doesn't necessarily mean Denver, doesn't necessarily mean your area. We still hear all of this information about how bad the market is, and that, you know, there's still a lot of low prices, a lot of great deals out there for investors. That's in different states. Because right now, we do have some properties that are great for investors, but they're for buy and hold. They're for people that want to buy a property, rent it out, because rents are up. And does anybody know why rents are up?
Inventory is low.
Yes, great answer. Inventory is low. This is one of the lowest inventory markets that we've had in 12 years. So that means if you want to list your house now, you have more showings and more opportunity to sell your property. So talking about low inventory, I'd like to just give you a little bit of information. I've got a PowerPoint presentation here. Let's see if I can get there. So the broad housing recovery right now is going to start in 2013 because we're hearing a lot more jobs that will be coming. 2011 was a year of stability for us in Denver.
Is that in their packet so they can see that better? Or?
Yeah, if you want to go, yeah, because it is. I'm not going to be talking about all the fine print stuff. I'm going to be talking about the bold headlines. So I encourage you when you go back home to read this information. It's great information. We compile all this inventory, like I said, from the Denver MLS and the surrounding Denver metro areas. So 2011 was a year of stability. 2012 is our initial recovery, because in the beginning of this year, we really didn't have that many sales. When March hit, we started noticing, okay, something's going on in our market. In June, it was amazing. Then we started seeing it on the news, on Div 9 News, all of a sudden saying something's going on in our market. July was the best month in about 12 years. I mean, we had sales through the roof. As soon as people put their house on the market and put a sign in the yard, there were multiple offers. Multiple offer situations get a little tricky, but they usually go with the highest. And sometimes they'll go over list price. Now when that happens, the appraisers are a little behind because they're used to the inventory situation and they have to go a year back. So we're seeing a little bit of difficulty in valuing properties right now because of this situation with having the low inventory. So here's an example of the shortage from 1990 to 2012, and I'm talking about single family homes and condos. So this number, look, in 2012 has dropped all the way down to 10,000 homes. In 2007, just 5 years ago, there were 31,000 homes. So look at that. And then it jumped up a little bit in 2009, and this is a trick question. Does anybody know what happened in 2009 to make everybody put their house on the market to sell? Nobody in here? Do you remember the tax credit? Okay. So the tax credit was when they said, okay, if you go out and buy a house, you get an $8,000 tax credit. And so people were like, oh, well, maybe my house will get sold. And we did. We had tons of buyers coming out for that. But then what happened right after that is the inventory dropped because if the house didn't sell, they took it off the market. And now we are down to 10,000 homes. Overall, the Denver market only has 2.7 months of inventory. So what that means is, everybody heard buyer's market, seller's market? It's a buyer's market if it's more than 6 months of inventory. It's a seller's market if it's less than 6 months. So we're sort of in that little timeline there. So with an average of 2.7, then that means it's becoming a seller's market, or it actually is a seller's market in a lot of neighborhoods. This actually does show also price changes. And over here on the side is the square feet. So when you go down and you look at line 3, 1,150 square feet to 1,625, there is about a 10% increase in price. The bigger the house, more square feet. Of course, usually the house is more expensive. Then they really haven't seen a price change. They're actually lowering the prices of the high-end homes are coming down. Okay, so the middle 250 to 350, 400, those are the properties right now that everybody's buying because the rates are so low. So they can actually, what we've been seeing is people that are living in under $200,000 houses can buy a house for $250 or to $300 and still have the same payment, which is great. And so that's another reason why there's low inventory, because there's so many buyers. I mean, with the rates at 3%, 3.25, they can actually have the same payment. So the higher end homes, we're starting to see those thaw, where people are going out to buy those because there's a lot of inventory in that higher end, over 700, up to 2 million. People are getting great discounts, unbelievable discounts, where they were selling for 3 and 4 million. Now they're 2 million. Where they were 2 million, now they're 1 million. The $1 million homes are selling under around 650. So that's great news. There's the map. This is going to break it out per neighborhood. You can't really see it up here, but it's really by city. So I encourage you to look at this because it's going to break it out on what has sold for this year up to September 30th. So this information is for the first 3 quarters of this year. So it's great to look and see what is happening in your city. And then this one, let me go back. This was really cool for us to find out. We broke it out into different markets. DNW stands for Denver Northwest. The one on the far right is D&E, Denver Northeast. Down at the bottom here, DSW, Denver Southwest, and Denver Southeast. What we found with Denver Northwest is that they were not hurt by any of the foreclosures, short sales. That market pretty much kept rising as all of this happened over the last 5 to 6 years. They've had, since 1987, a 339% increase in their prices. Which, so if you bought in 1987 in that area, you could look at your house, you know, buying a $20,000, $40,000 house, and now it's worth $400,000. The area over Denver Northeast still had an increase, but look at what happened. It dropped by 37% in 2008 to 2010, and then now we're up, bumped back up in 2012. Again, Denver Southwest, 126% up, and then Denver Southeast, 221. So real estate pretty much always increases, and then what happens after a few years, 20 to 30 years, it can't just keep going up. So it had to dip, but now we're back on the rise. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Shirley.
As you flip through these pages, Monica, could you let everybody know what page you're on?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
This is page 14, and I think this is going to be the last information that I'm going to be talking about in the brochure. But I guess you can look at this area. Aurora North had a big dip, negative 43. So where I've shaded it is where that's where the market fell. But they're still on the incline. Aurora South, they're still declining in a lot of prices in Aurora South. So that's a market right now that might be still recovering. Your question?
On the previous page in Denver Southeast, it shows that it's declining again.
Yeah, there's been some situations in Denver Southeast where there have been more foreclosures happening in short sales. But I would say that it's still, I mean, it's got a 221% increase in price. It's not going to be very long before it takes off. But it really only had like a 1-year recovery in the aspect of looking at, this is not condos, to let you know too. It's just single family.
Where does the townhomes and condos fit in this whole thing?
Right now, because of situations with HOAs, a lot of times what happens is if short sales and foreclosures, when the HOAs quit receiving payments, then the HOA, either the fee goes up so that people can cover what needs to be covered, or if they don't, then there's liens, and the HOA has to put liens on properties with condominiums. And so condominiums right now are great for investing because you can rent them out pretty easily. The prices are still pretty low. So yeah, it's if you have a specific address you want us to look at and see what's happening in that neighborhood.
I do.
Because some areas
aren't.
I mean, yeah, okay, well, great. Be great to let Shirley know,
Okay.
because that way we can do a whole what we call a current market analysis just on your condominium complex.
Okay.
But what we're finding is a lot of investors are going after condos right now so they can rent them out. So it's a great time to be buying for that reason. Okay, great. So I think that's going to be it for this presentation. Let me see if there's anything else in here. Shadow inventory, we have figured out, and shadow inventory is what you keep hearing on the news, that there's all of these foreclosures that the banks still have, that they haven't released out as bank-owned properties. Our market is not going to experience anything like that. We're talking, if anything, probably about 5,000 to 8,000 more homes might hit in the next year from banks and HUD, government. We need them. So it's not going to be a situation where in California or Arizona, when they drop those bank-owned properties into the market, their markets might decline again. They might have a whole nother round of properties that are going to be declining in price. But with us, since we need the inventory, we're like, send them on. I mean, HUD has a lot of properties that they're sort of trickling in, and the government I think they released like 16,000 nationwide just last month, and we only got like 200, out of the whole 16,000. So, but yeah, if you have any questions, I want you to go back and look at the brochure and read it, and then you can call Shirley or myself with any of your questions personally on your properties.
Also, there's a contact form that everybody got if you would like us to contact you for a free market analysis or just to talk about your real estate needs and goals. Just mark that and leave it on your chair and we'll pick it up.
And your number is?
So let's jump into the handout that I gave you.
Sure.
We sort of answered the question, is now the time to sell? Yes, now is definitely the time to sell. What's going to happen if you do decide to sell now, in between November and December, they're going to be able to take when we do a current market analysis, they're going to be able to take the activity that's happened over the summer, okay, and get to apply that. So the summer, with as hot as it was and all of the sales that happened, they get to apply that. Also, there always seems to be less inventory during November and December. So yours could be actually the only house on the market in your neighborhood, which means you have a better chance of selling it. What happens when people say, oh, I'm going to wait till the spring because my house looks better because it has more curb appeal, flowers, things like that starting to come out. All of a sudden you have more competition. So if you list your house, it's sort of like this thing you've always heard. Sell your house in the spring and summer. You'll get more for it. Well, what we're finding now is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in Denver what month you put your house in the market because there's just not enough inventory. I just listed a house last month, the only one in the neighborhood. We got 8 offers, and it went $20,000 over list price. So those are the kind of things you want to happen instead of it sitting on the market for months and months and you've got all this competition. So I put together 8 reasons why you want to work with a realtor. If you decide to list your house, it really is best to use a realtor. A realtor is someone that has taken a course called an ethics course, and it's how to deal with people on an ethical basis. There's a difference between a realtor and just a real estate agent. So a real estate agent is someone that is not a member of a board, a real estate board, and it's someone that hasn't taken that course. So they can still get access to the MLS, but they won't be able to put your listing on Realtor.com.
What's the difference between a realtor and a
transaction broker?
Broker, yes.
Okay. A transaction broker can actually be a real estate agent or a realtor. But a transaction broker is someone that is going to work on both sides of the transaction. So they're either working, usually they start out listing a property.
Do they take those classes for realty or no?
Excuse me?
Do they take those?
Oh, yes.
They did, okay.
Yeah, so a transaction broker is just a definition of someone that's going to work the transaction for both the buyer and the seller at the same time. They can also be a transaction broker, which means, and they're just working with the buyer or just working with the seller, and it just means that they can't really advise on price and issues like that. It's more, usually you want an exclusive listing, an exclusive agency with as a seller, because that means that selling or listing broker is working for you. If a buyer comes through that listing broker, then the seller can decide if they want to use her or him as a transaction broker, which means that broker would work for both buyer and seller. But most of the time, buyers come with their own representation. So, does that answer your question? I mean, a transaction broker is someone that you can work with both sides of the transaction.
That's a disadvantage too, isn't it?
Not necessarily. It can be an advantage for the seller,
Right.
because they can pay less commission.
Right.
If you have two brokers, it's usually, it just depends on what the listing agreement determines. So if you sell your house and it's, let's just use an example of 6%, and the listing broker is going to make 3.2%, and the buyer broker is going to make 2.8. Well, what if a buyer comes and just calls on the sign and talks to the listing broker and says, I don't have representation, I'd like to see the property. The listing broker shows it, and then the buyer says, I want you to help me buy this house. So then the listing, if they have an exclusive listing agreement, they have to go back to the seller and say, I know I'm exclusive with you, but I have a buyer that's actually interested in utilizing my services to buy this property too. So usually what I do in the listing presentation and the listing agreement is I say, if I find the buyer, I'll be able to discount and lower my commission. No longer will I be at the 6%. Maybe I'll do it for 4%, because there's no other broker to be paid. Most of the time, they have their own representation. So does that answer your question? Okay. So the realtor, like I said, is someone that's been is a member of a board. A real estate agent is someone that's not a member of a board. So they would not be able to list your property on the realtor.com, because realtor.com is whoever's a realtor. And realtor.com is the #1 real estate website. That's where most people go. They've calculated about 90% of people will search realtor.com because it's the search engine that pops up to the top. So you definitely want to make sure your listing gets put on realtor.com. And I just put the 8 reasons why you should work with a realtor. And it is a complicated process. We can provide you with all kinds of current market analysis, information and opinions on the value. If you're buying, we can definitely help you to get into the properties, because a lot of times if you don't use a realtor or someone, it's hard for you to get in the properties. You've got to call on the signs and try to get in through the agent that's actually listing the property. Negotiating skills. It's really important, because how do you know if you don't use someone on the negotiating aspect of it is, are you getting the best price? And then marketing. If you put your property on the market, again, we talked about realtor.com, but we have a lot of marketing power when it comes to different websites too. If you decide to list the property yourself, you can still go in and try to list on different websites, but we have an automatic, as a realtor, we have an automatic search engine that as soon as we put in a listing into this MLS, it goes out to like 400 different real estate websites. So it's just an automatic thing. We're someone who speaks the language, all the terms, all the acronyms, and experience. You might just buy a home or sell a home once or twice in your life. We do hundreds. I mean, this is something that we do every day. I've already sold 45 properties this year. So it's something that just happens that we do, instead of you only having that experience once or twice in your lifetime. Okay. Who has bought and sold a house more than 5 times? Okay, you, because you've got a license. You have? Fantastic. So you're like moving around different states? Oh, see? So people that have had their license, yeah, we've bought or sold tons of houses. And then we have an objective voice. You know, a lot of times when it comes to selling your house, you get pretty emotional. With us, we're not emotionally attached, so we can give you an objective opinion about things. And then I put at the bottom up here, I didn't write it on, but I'll let you take this note. If you want to buy a HUD property, a government property, you can't just go online and bid. You have to actually bid on those homes by using a licensed real estate agent or realtor. Okay, so it has to be someone that is registered to do that with HUD. So a lot of people, and you write this website down because it's a great website to look at and see what's happening. It's called HUDHomestore.com.
One word?
www.hudhomestore.com. And you'll go to Colorado, and you will be able to see how many HUDs are in Colorado, and then you can narrow it down by city. You narrow it down by price. There's a $100 down payment program right now with HUD. Denver and the metro area, Colorado as a state, were the only ones that the government has allowed for the $100 down program. That's all you need, $100. So if you have anybody that you know that's looking to buy right now, it's a great time to buy with $100 down, because HUD will pay for your closing costs on your loan and pay the realtors, so all you need is $100. Good Neighbor Next Door program is a great program for city employees. It's 50% off of list price. So if it's listed for 100, you get it for 50,000. If it's listed for 200, you get it for 100,000. You have a question?
Could you say that one more time?
The Good Neighbor Next Door program. The only bad thing, a negative thing about the Good Neighbor Next Door is there's just not a lot of HUD homes that they allow that. So when they do come on, there's tons of bids. So your 50% ends up being more, because people who want to win that bid.
Is there qualifying factors for that too? I mean, do you have to be low income or a certain,
No, it just depends on the city and area that you work for. Firemen, EMTs, teachers, those are all part of the Good Neighbor Next Door program. So if you want, when you go to HUD Home Store, there's a little drop-down box and it says what type of buyer are you, and you can either put owner-occupant, investor, or Good Neighbor Next Door, and it'll list.
What's Good Neighbor Next Door now?
You get 50% off of the list price.
What qualifies you as a Good Neighbor Next Door?
It's city and county employees, EMTs, teachers, firemen, policemen.
Only in the city of Denver, or?
No, anywhere in the state of Colorado.
Really?
But it's not all city employees.
But it's not all city employees, yeah. They break it down. So there's a lot of guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, I think there's only been like 10 properties this year that were a part of that program. So, but it's a great thing if you're in that area and you look at the property, because it'll list the properties that are available on HUD Home Store.
Okay.
If you turn to the next page, this is if you plan to sell your house yourself. For sale by owners, you see those signs out there a lot. These are people that have decided that maybe they can't afford to sell their house through a realtor because you have to pay the commissions. Maybe they owe too much on the property, or maybe they just said, I don't want to work with a realtor. When you work, or when you decide to sell your house yourself, there's several people that you need to have contacts with. So I listed them. That way you can be prepared if you decide to do this. But if you use a realtor, we usually have contacts and vendors for all of these different types of people.
I just made copies of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is great. Shirley just gave us the definitions of working relationships. So you had the question about the transaction broker, and explains it what it is. A seller's agent, a buyer's agent, a transaction broker. Perfect, Shirley. And what we have to do as brokers, is we are real estate agents or realtors, is we have to give this form to you when we first start working with you, because a lot of times people do not understand the differences. So this is the form that our commission, our real estate commission, is required for us to have signed. Okay, so moving on, because we want to talk about short sales. Has everybody heard of a short sale? Okay, 5-6 years ago, even banks didn't know what short sales were. I've been selling short sales as a listing agent for about that long, since 2005. I was one of the first 100 real estate agents to get a designation to sell short sale listings. They were very difficult because, like I said, the banks didn't have a system. So at one time I had like 37 short sale listings and I only sold 3, which means that I had 37 properties out there and only 3 of them the bank said, okay, yes, this property can be short sold. Short sale is when the mortgage is higher than the value of the house. Okay, so prices kept declining. So what was happening is the banks just couldn't do the short sales fast enough and the prices just kept going down. So now we're going to see less and less of short sales because with the market appreciating, people aren't going to be underwater. Does that make sense? I mean, if you're sitting there on the fence thinking maybe I should sell, maybe we can do a market analysis and see, okay, where your mortgage is compared to where the list price is now, and maybe there's equity now in between, where in the last few years there was no equity. So people, in order to sell their house, they were either going to have to bring money to the closing table in order to close or ask the bank to take a short. So I put together just some information that's really important. If for some reason you have to move and your property's underwater, or we call it over leveraged or underwater, look and see if you can do a loan modification. Because loan modifications right now, the banks are willing to work with you. The only thing I don't like about the loan modification is they tell you you have to be late on your mortgage before they'll consider doing a loan mod. And so that sort of, to me, doesn't really make sense because they ask you to not make payments on your house before they'll consider helping you adjust your payments, which damages your credit. So all of a sudden your credit gets damaged. Sometimes they want you to miss 3 payments in a row before they'll adjust your loan. So it's better to, and everybody's shaking their heads, it's better to just look and see if maybe you can hold out, make those payments, and as the market's increasing, then you won't be in an underwater situation. You can't short sell your house yourself. You can try, you can call your lender and say, listen, I want to short sell my house. The first thing they're going to say is get someone to list it for you. Because they want to list it and get the open market bids. They're not going to just take your word for what you think it's worth. They want a professional. You're going to need to gather all your documentation on the reasons why you need to short sell. You have to have a purchase, an offer, a purchase agreement. You have to have a short sale addendum, which is part of the commission forms that are required for us to show. And you have to have a hardship letter, why you have to use, sometimes it's divorce, job loss, all different kinds of reasons. Lots of hospital bills. But you'll need federal tax returns, you'll need bank statements, you'll need lots of things to show the reason why you can't make your payment. They take, when I first started, they were taking about 9 months. Then there was an average of 6 months for a short sale. Now they're down to about 4 months. But some banks are getting very good about short sales because they've done so many that they can get done between 30 and 60 days now. Does anybody have questions on that?
Just a quick one. Have you had any luck doing contingencies with short sales?
Yeah, the thing about, you mean contingency, like somebody offering on a property that they have to sell?
Yeah.
No,
But
they
you
won't
have
do
to come
it.
with
The same thing with the
offer.
bank owned.
Yeah, clean offer.
It really, because you would think because it takes so long to do a short sale that somebody could probably sell their house in the time, but we haven't been seeing the bank agreeing to those. Bank owned, absolutely not. They will not take a contingency because there's too many buyers. If somebody needs to sell their house and they want to buy a foreclosure, you have to sell your other house first or not need to. And a lot of times people think the short sale is going to be the answer to everything. Sometimes a bankruptcy is better than a short sale. Sometimes foreclosing on the property is better than a short sale. So that's why you need expert advice. And we would love to help you. I have a real estate attorney that works with me also that I usually say to my clients, why don't you talk to him before you decide to do something like this? Because it's not always the answer to your financial problems. Okay, and then I put together, we're not going to go over this, but the foreclosure versus short sale. And I've got 2 pages on that. Homeowner consequences. Short sales are normally better than foreclosing, but like I said, every case is different. Sometimes it might be better to foreclose and just get rid of the property that way. Sometimes bankruptcy is better. So you can read the difference in if you've ever had a short sale or a foreclosure in your history. This also shows when a bank would be able to lend to you again. And I just sold a house. I helped a couple short sell their house 2 years ago in May, and they got a 3% loan on a new purchase, and we just closed on it last week. So just over 2 years, and that short sale did not damage their credit. I mean, they were able to reestablish within that 2-year time period, but a 3% on someone that actually had a pre-foreclosure, that's amazing. So the banks are going back out and lending again. So if you hear that rumor where if you foreclose or short sell, you'll never be able to buy a house again, that's not true, okay? 5 things to do before putting your home on the market. So we're going to step outside of the short sale and foreclosure arena. But if you have any questions, know that you can get back in touch with us. 5 things to do before you put your home on the market. And actually I added it. That's my terrible handwriting down there at the bottom where I sort of threw that one in there at the last minute. So you want to do a pre-home inspection. And what that means is you want to have either an inspector or someone, a family member, someone that knows a lot about houses, go through your house and look at anything that might pop up on the inspection report that a buyer will do. Most buyers are required to do inspections by their lenders. They ask them the question now. Starting next year, this is all new, is the inspection report is going to be part of the contract to buy and sell. So that's new. That's never happened before. They are attaching it to the contract, and this is all new to us, and so that the resolution that goes on between a buyer and a seller in the aspect of inspecting the house and what needs to be done to the house, the lender can now get involved in all of that. So it's going to be a little bit stickier with inspections. So that's why it's important to do it before. If you do it before you list your house, you get a lot of those things put away, taken care of, and you can even say, here, we did the inspection for you to the buyer. You can have the inspection there at your house when the property is being shown. It's just going to make life a lot easier if you do it ahead of time. Organize and clean. I always tell my sellers to have an appointment with a staging consultant, because that way the stager can say, let's do this, let's rearrange the furniture, let's take some of these pictures down. And a lot of times you can take items right out of the house and put them in the garage so that the square footage will look a little bit bigger with less furniture. It's good to get replacement estimates. Let's say that you think that your roof needs an inspection. And how much is it going to cost to get a new roof? Maybe you need to get a claim on it to get a new roof. Newer items will always increase the value of the house. New carpets, new paint, things like that. And go around and get all the warranties for all of your appliances. Or you can buy a home warranty for your buyer. Does anybody have a home warranty on their house? Home warranties are awesome. They're like $350 a year. They cover all your appliances, plumbing, water heater, furnace. So if you list your house for $350, you can actually give that to the buyer when it transfers. Spruce up the curb appeal, and that's the biggest thing, and the pictures. Make sure that pictures are on the website or MLS. They did a survey on Realtor.com on homes that didn't have pictures. 98% of people will go to the next property if they're looking at listings. same thing as Craigslist. Have you ever looked at Craigslist and you're looking for something and they don't put a picture? It's like you just move on to the next one. And then what I put here at the bottom, go see your competition. So if you think about listing your house, before you list it, I say it's like a football game. Whoever sells first is going to win. But we actually get to go into their locker rooms. So before you list your property, check out the competition. Go in, have a realtor show you, have someone else, or just call on the sign and say you'd like to see that property. Because a lot of times, you might have never been in that house and you've always wondered, and they've got it listed at $275, and you're thinking, well, my house is a little bit bigger than that. Maybe I can sell my house for $300. And then you get inside and you see all of this work that's been done. And so then you'll know, well, maybe my house needs to be underneath so that I can sell it quicker. Anybody have any questions on this? Pretty general, easy stuff. So, we talked about moving up. If you want to sell your property right now and you're thinking, okay, I've got enough equity in my house so that I can put that as a down payment on another house, it's best to go ahead and get pre-qualified before you decide to list your property. If you're thinking about doing that, if you're thinking about maybe you can buy a property that's more expensive by selling your current house now, the rates, what if you're at 5% now and you want to go ahead and buy a new house at 3.25%? If you work with a lender, they can actually figure that out for you and see what is your payment going to be, and they'll tell you the maximum of house that you can afford. But what we've been seeing in that 250 to 400 range, and people that are living in properties that are under 250, they're able to bump up almost $100,000, between $75,000 and $100,000, because the rates. You want to look at the equity in your house. You want to get a current market analysis. What if your income situation has improved over the last 10 years? Then definitely you want to see how much house can you afford, or maybe if you sell now, maybe you want to downsize. Maybe that gives you the opportunity to get a lot of equity out of your house and maybe invest your money in something else. Have you outgrown your neighborhood? A lot of times people outgrow their neighborhoods. A lot of times people don't have kids anymore. So there's all kinds of situations. Are there reasons why you can't remodel? Remodeling right now is what a lot of people are doing because they're in that situation where they really can't sell. Maybe they've had a little bit increase in price in their neighborhood, but if you remodel, all that's going to do is help with the value of the house. So those are things to consider before you actually list. Are you comfortable moving in this current housing market? I would say yes, except for there's more buyers. So that's the only thing, is you might have a great outcome with selling your house, but then you can't buy one. And we are seeing that, and it's a crazy, crazy time where you get this great value in your house, you sell it within a week, and then you end up having to rent at a really high rate because you can't find a house to buy because there's multiple offers. So I don't want that to deter you on listing. We feel like the more education that we give people, the more the news is getting out there saying, listen, it's time to sell your house. I think that what you'll find is you'll be able to look and see if you can move into a different area. But it's a good time to sell. And then we put home seller facts here. There's a lot of situations with listing your home that you might have some questions, so we tried to put everything that we could think of for questions. Who thinks an open house is effective? Raise your hand. Does anybody know what an open house is?
Yes.
So nobody in here thinks an open house is effective for selling it. Okay, we got one person. Would you like to give us your opinion?
I just think that you'll get more traffic in there.
Okay, more people walking through. It really depends on the agent. It really does. because some agents just do it for the seller because they're like, I'm going to get more people in here, but then they don't put signs out, they don't advertise. Everybody's going. It really depends on that person that's listing your house, because I have found that open houses are very effective for the agent for getting buyers for other houses. But a lot of times, if you advertise it correctly, you'll be able to find a buyer for that property. And a lot of times it is just, neighbors walking through. But it's going to be up to you whether you want to open your house up. Let's see. Expenses. When you sell your house, there's not only the commissions that you have to pay to the agents, there's title insurance. What is title insurance? Does anybody know what title insurance is?
Yeah, guarantee that the house is clear. You can do it.
Free and clear, the title? People, when they think of insurance, they think of something that happens in the future. When you buy car insurance, it's if you're going to crash. Title insurance is for things that happen in the past.
Right.
So that's the difference. That's just, when you think of title insurance, it's insuring that title for things like liens, things that might have happened in the past. So you have to have that if you have a loan on your house. If you don't have a loan on your house, you don't have to have title insurance. If you buy a house with cash, you don't have to pay for new title insurance on that property. You have a question? Somebody had their hand up. You did.
How expensive is the title insurance when you sell your house?
There's different rates with different title companies. So the best way to do is just look online. You can search title companies and they'll give their rates online. It depends on the price of the house too and the size of the house.
Are we talking thousands?
Yeah, average. I've seen up to $1 million home, $1,500 to $1,800, $100,000 home, $700 to $800.
So it's not that much compared to the commission that the agents.
Right. Oh no, title insurance and closing fee for a title company to actually close is usually around $350. That would be the max. I've seen them $250 to $350.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What is your opinion on, let's say you go into a new addition and you want to buy a home, and there's a deal where you use their realtors to sell your home and buy, and you end up no realtor cost.
And you'll end
It's
up.
kind of a, you go into their neighborhood, you buy their new home, and they'll use whatever their real
to buy. So that's what we were talking
sell
about.
your home. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, you can get discounts on situations like that.
That's how I sold my house before.
Yeah. Yeah, it all depends on that agent, what kind of services. A lot of times if I'm helping someone sell and buy, I will not give the discount on the sale of the house. I'll give it on the next transaction. A buyer rebate.
Do realtors as a whole, let's say I used somebody to sell my house 10 years ago, are you more apt to be a little bit more negotiable on your commission for a repeat customer?
Most likely. But you never know.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, when I work with investors too. So I've sold one investor, I sold him 25, 30 properties. So I work with my commission on that because I'm selling him so many houses.
Right.
So yeah, it really depends on the broker, on the agent. You had another question yet?
Yes. How easy is it to get off of a contract where you decided initially to sell your home and the contract with your broker is for 6 months, and then 2 months down you're like, okay, it's not working out, and I think I'm just going to hold back on selling it. Is it pretty much set in stone, or is it there?
It has to be in writing. It needs to be in writing, so you need to both agree. And a lot, that is a binding contract.
Mm-hmm.
So the listing agent may say, no, we have until this time, until it expires. So you can try to terminate in writing, say I want to terminate this, but that's you, because it has to be a mutually agreed situation. So we're almost done here. But that's a conversation, that definitely have that, you know, with an agent if you're dissatisfied. And sometimes you have to talk to the managing broker, and that's someone like me, where I get those phone calls from clients. But we have lots of answers to questions we think that you might have. You know, a collateral title, we talked about that. The difference between square feet and finished square feet. Okay, square feet is what the tax assessors normally have at the county. They've, when your house was sold last time or when it was built, they do a measurement of the property, and also the appraiser is going to do a measurement of the property. They use the actual square footage that's total square feet, and then you're going to have finished square feet. Okay, finished is when it's finished, if it's built out. So you might have a house that's 1,200 square feet above grade, and then you have another 1,200 square feet below grade that's unfinished, like an unfinished basement. It's 2,400 total, but it's only 1,200 finished. And that's how properties get advertised when they go on the market. We have to disclose that. We have to say what's finished, what's unfinished, what's the total square feet, things like that. So, yeah.
So when you're advertising, you're selling your home and you have 2 bedrooms in the basement, are you not going to include those rooms and just the finish?
You can advertise that you have, like if you have 2 above, 2 below grade.
Yes.
You can advertise that it's a 4-bedroom, but a lot of times we have to disclose whether they're non-conforming or not, which means if it has an egress window, because a lot of times the basements don't have egress. If they do, and they're conforming and they have a closet, then yes, we can count it in the total. But we have to disclose if they're not. And you can chime in, Mr. Remax. You know what I'm talking about. We have to, yeah, we have to disclose everything. So any more questions? Because it's 1 o'clock. Well, I really appreciate you all coming today. I hope you got a lot out of it. My information's on the brochure. I think Shirley's handed out her card. We can definitely do a current market analysis for you to give you a better idea of where the property values are, because that's pretty much what everybody probably wants to know.